Hello, everyone, and thank you for being connected to today for our webinar on marketing through social media, delivered by Kristine de Valck, Professor Kristine de Valck. Hello, Kristine. So, well, maybe we'll wait several seconds more for the last minute people to be connected. So just before talking about marketing in social media, I just wanted to tell you quite quickly the different points we will also mention today during this masterclass. So the first topic we will cover will be, well, to give you some facts about HEC Paris and Coursera, because what I didn't mention before is that the social media and marketing for social media, this masterclass is a sample of the real class that Professor Kristine de Valck delivered during the master degree we have in partnership with Coursera. So that's the reason why I wanted to give you some facts about HEC Paris and also Coursera before going deeply into this topic. So the second point I will cover will be some highlights on the Master Innovation Entrepreneurship. Then you will assist the very interesting masterclass in marketing through social media. And we will finish this webinar by giving you some details about how to apply to this magnificent program. So maybe to mention something, if you have some questions during the webinar, don't hesitate to use and to ask any questions you may have on the question box, or the question box you have in the right bottom of your screen. Here are some key facts about HEC Paris. So this school was founded in 1881 by the French Chamber of Commerce, and since then the school is training each year a lot of managers and leaders. The school is #1 school in France, but also second in Europe, according to Financial Times. And HEC Paris is also #1 school for entrepreneurship in France. We also have a partnership with Station F, which is the world's largest and one of the most successful incubators in the world. And last but not least, HEC Paris is in the top 3 in the world for the graduating CEOs of Fortune. As I mentioned before, we are delivering each year a lot of executive classes in marketing, in finance, but we also have different programs like EMBAs, MBAs, etc. So here are some facts about Coursera, because this class, as I mentioned, is delivered in partnership with Coursera. So maybe some of you already heard about this platform, which was created in 2012 by 2 Stanford professors. And since then, the platform has delivered around 2,000 courses in a variety of subjects, for example, medicine, biology, engineering, but also some courses in leadership and in strategy. Each year, you have over 33 million users who are connected to the platform in order to exchange with the other participants and to learn some new things about biology, about strategy, and leadership. And last but not least, Coursera has a partnership with over 150 institutions across the globe. So here are some highlights about the Master in Innovation and Entrepreneurship. So as the name of the program shows, this program is focusing on innovation and entrepreneurship. By doing this program, you will be able to earn a degree from an internationally recognized institution like HEC Paris. Some of the advantages of the program is, first of all, the fact that the program is delivered fully online, so there's no need to be present on the campus. You can do the program during your free time. That means if you have professional responsibilities, you can keep your job and doing the program in your free time, as I mentioned before. Another advantage is that some of the classes, they are delivered, they're registered offline, and you're not able, this is about the first part of the program, because the program is divided into two parts. The first part is, let me say, the offline courses, and you can do these courses during your free time. And then for the second part, which will be the project part, you need to be connected and to interact with the other participants working on the team project. And last but not least, there is also a very attractive tuition fees about the program. So in terms of population and participants we have in this program, well, you can imagine that we have quite a lot of entrepreneurs, people who have a professional experience of around 15 years or a minimum of 5 years professional experience, because this is one of the requirements. People who, after having experienced a lot of things in the company, they would like to go deeper and to create their own company. We also have people who experience entrepreneurship, and they still would like to continue on this path and to create some other companies. And then we also have a consultant in innovation management, and manager and executives in this program. Here you have some example of the classes you will be able to follow during the program. For example, team working, which is very useful for the second part of the program, when you will be working on the team project. You have also some classes on design thinking, negotiation, and reinventing your business model with Odyssey, which is an approach that has been created by HEC professors. And of course, you have the very interesting classes in marketing, which will be delivered by Kristine. So I think that now I will maybe leave you to introduce yourself and then to tell us a little bit more about marketing and how marketing is functioning today, thanks to the social media.
With pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia, for that introduction. So, hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm very pleased to be talking to you today and to share with you a little bit about the course that I developed for this online degree. I'm very impressed with how many of you have connected today. I don't think I've ever spoken for such a large audience live. So I hope I'm at the level of your expectations. So let's move into the topic. So the course that I give here at HEC in the regular programs, in the MBA program, in the MSc program, in our executive programs, and also online, is called Marketing Through Social Media. Maybe a couple of words about myself. I like this picture. It looks a bit like me. I've been, let's say, studying social media since a long time. Yes, I'm not that young anymore. So I did my PhD in Rotterdam School of Management. I'm from the Netherlands. At the time that the internet really just started to be big. So let's say that was in the 90s when a lot of companies went online. And it was the beginning of online communities, virtual communities. So I wrote my dissertation on that particular topic. And then I can say that over the last 15 years, I have been pretty busy, because in the domain of social media, obviously, so many developments have occurred around, let's say, between 2003 and 2007. I had to redesign my course, honestly, every 6 months because there were new platforms that appeared. So it's been a very interesting, busy period. I think there's still a lot to say about how you can do marketing through social media, and this is what my course aims to address. So before we get into me teaching you, let me hear a little bit about you. So the question I would like to ask you is, how social media savvy are you? And we're going to launch a poll. Um, so we're going to launch the poll, yes, and you're going to please answer uh, one of these things so that I can see a little bit how savvy my audience is today. Oh, hola. Yes. I'll give you a couple of more time to reply. Couple of more seconds. Look at that. Many of you are replying. That's great. Okay, so let's close it and let's show the results to you. And now you need to show me because now I don't. Oh yeah, no, I do see the results. So sorry. This is not exactly a regular classroom, so it's. I'm social media savvy, but I'm not very technological savvy necessarily. But okay, as you can see, is that most of you actually divide between using social media occasionally versus actually using social media quite intensely as a user. There's much less of you that are professionally involved in social media. So maybe that's a good news for me today, because it means that I can still teach you something. So obviously the course really has a business perspective. So we're taking we're going to be looking at social media from a business perspective, and from a marketer's perspective, from a manager's perspective. So it would be happy also to see what people who are already working with social media professionally have to contribute. And indeed, don't hesitate to use the questions or the chat box function that you find on the right side of your screen to post questions along. And I will get back to those if possible at the end of the seminar. Okay, thank you. So I have a second question for you. So now, putting yourself in the context of being a professional, how important are social media for your business? Oh, no, sorry. How important are social media for your business? So please also answer that question for me so that I have another idea or how far your business is already. Okay, great. We'll give you a couple of more seconds to answer. Great, you're very active. Thank you so much for participating. I think we can close the sondage, the survey, and then share the results with you. So as I see very, very commonly with the executive audience that I teach, is that a lot of companies indeed are using social media, but are still really trying to figure out how they can do that strategically. Although I see there's also an important part of you, a 30% that use it a lot, and about 15% also say, okay, we know that there is a real value that comes from it, and we really cannot do without it. It may also depend a little bit on what kind of business you're in, because social media may sometimes be a little bit more important for consumer businesses, for entertainment businesses, for example, or travel business. So indeed, I think you have something to learn. So let us continue with the presentation. Thank you for taking part in the survey. So here I put a collection, let's say, of insights that have been shared and by market research companies, to simply show you that even for those who don't really know whether social media have a proven ROI or what kind of value they offer, there is actually a lot of value in social media. First of all, consumers' decisions are very much influenced by social media posts. Consumers are much more likely to actually convert in buying something once they have been exposed to social media posts or, for example, online reviews and ratings from other consumers. Um, a lot of consumers turn to social media, the internet, reviews, ratings to inform their purchase decision making. Uh, Also, it's not only other consumers' posts on social media, it is also definitely businesses and marketers that are active on social media and that influence consumers' posts. Okay, I do need to see my slides because otherwise it's going to be. Thank you. That's great to my team. Okay, so probably many of you may actually be aware of these statements, but then the question still really is. I need to go back to my screen. Yes, the question really is: how can you create value through using social media? And that is the core question around which I have build my course. How can you create value both for customers as well as how can you create value for you as a company? And then indeed to prove that ROI. Alors, so if I give you a little, let's say, a course in marketing, then for a long time, marketers' role when they were using media was really to try to attract attention to their product and honestly to nudge consumers to buy it. So the way we teach marketing to our students is we say there is a funnel through which consumers go. They consider many brands. Then throughout the consumer decision process, they consider maybe fewer and they make a final choice and then they buy it. And marketers for a very long time, have focused their attention really on that first step. So making sure that consumers are aware of your brand. And then that final step, making sure that you nudge consumers to buy it with promotions, with a point of purchase activities, promotional activities. Today, due to social media, and I explain that much more in depth in the course, I'll give you a little flavor of that. We really think about the consumer decision journey a bit differently. So rather than that we consider it as a funnel, we say it is much more an ellipse where you see that the phase in which consumers consider brands and evaluate brands has extremely expanded simply because we can. We go online, we find information about brands that is marketer generated, but obviously that is also consumer generated. So you see that this upper part of the consumer journey is much longer. And then you see there's a whole second part that has been added to that. Due to internet and due to social media, markets now are much more concerned with what happens after consumers have purchased their product, because then they enjoy it and then they turn back to the internet and social media to talk about their purchases, to talk about their consumption experiences. And consumers also turn to social media to connect with other consumers in communities, which is the particular topic of today's session. So to sum it up, in the past, marketers' job really was to focus on creating awareness, top of the funnel, and influencing consumers at the point of purchase. What has changed today is that consumers should still continue to do that, but what is added to that is that they need to offer support during the pre and the post-purchase evaluation phases. They need to give consumers a reason to bond with other consumers. That was the bottom part of the ellipse that we just saw, and facilitate this interaction. And social media are key value drivers in this particular process. So in the course, I develop and I explain the following 4 strategies that companies, in my eyes, should pursue when they use social media. And I think here you already start to see the variety of things that you can do on social media. And hopefully that already starts to give you some answers when most of you said, yeah, we're using social media, but we do not really know exactly how to do it. Well, this kind of framework should help you to assess what you're currently doing and maybe where there are still gaps and what you can fill. So I explain you the picture that you see on your screen. So you see there's these two axes. If we look at the horizontal X on social media, you have the two parties, right? It's not just the company or the marketer as it was before. In traditional media, it was the marketer that was the king and controlled everything. So we still have that on social media too. Companies go on social media and produce content on social media. On the other side, social media is also very much driven by consumers. So we have those two things. And then if we look at the vertical axis, social media should be used as a lot of other market or social media maybe differently from a lot of our other marketing channels can be used both to attract customers. So that is, let's say again, the top of the funnel, but it can also definitely be used to retain consumers. And that gives us, if we put these two axes together, four different strategies. Communication, which is typically also called content marketing. So to some extent, this is a variety of what marketers have always been doing, using social media to present their marketing messages and to engage with consumers. Then there is sharing. This is consumers going to social media and sharing their experiences, their reviews and ratings with other people. Then if we move to the bottom left, marketers increasingly are adopting social media to provide care, customer support after purchase. And then if we really complete, let's say, the consumer journey, you have communities online that consumers bond, in which consumers bond with each other and with the brand and with the company behind the brand to really create deep loyalty. Okay, what I want to do today, oh no, indeed, let me talk to you a little bit then about how the course is built up. It is built up in four different modules where I really talk you through, let's say, these four different steps of social media marketing. Of course, in the first module, we're going to spend a bit of time really understanding why marketing in the social media era is different, what has changed from before. In module two, because social media is not homogeneous, social media is very heterogeneous. We have many different types of platforms, and these platforms all have their own particularities and cultures. So we understand, we try to spend time and understand together what are these differences and particularities. And then indeed we talk about this first step, communication, content marketing, and how that is different from maybe traditional mass media marketing. We spend a lot of time on this second pillar, which is sharing, and really how social media is very different from traditional marketing is that consumers talk and produce content. So here this is word of mouth marketing and influencer marketing, and some of you said that you yourself are an influencer. So that particular model goes into that both theoretically and practically. What does it mean? And then in the final model we move to the bottom part of the grid, let's say, providing care through social media, also using social media for intelligence, marketing intelligence. What can you learn as a marketer, listening what consumers say on social media about your brand or about your competitor's brand? And finally, community marketing. And that is the topic I want to dive into for this masterclass a bit further. Why? So commune, here we are. Why? I think one, because it is maybe my pet topic in the sense that that is the topic with which I started my PhD dissertation with 15 years, no, 20 years ago. And also because social media, with the rise of Facebook and Instagram and WeChat and Snapchat, maybe have gotten a little bit less attention. So they are an undervalued tactic, but actually one that has really can really make a business impact. So what is the kind of business impacts that have been proven? So market research and also academic research have proven that communities, online communities, for example, are very important for lead generation. and conversion. So having consumers that think about buying your product, but then actually turning them into actual buyers through communities and participating in communities and listening to consumers or customers talking in these communities. Companies get concrete ideas for product improvement. They increase customer satisfaction and bonding. Also, customers, consumers that participate in communities are high buyers, big buyers. And finally, there is communities are used a lot for support. So to give you a little bit of idea of to let's say summarize what the value of communities really is, and here we really have this two-sided approach that I try to take all the time in my course, is for participants. So that could be B2C, meaning consumers like you and me when we buy a bottle of water. It could also be B2B, which means more in a business or industrial context. If, for example, in the automobile industry, you have companies that produce tires, and then you have the car makers that buy these tires. So that is a B2B context. So participants, what kind of value they get out of communities is that people discuss and they listen and participate in these qualities discussion, which then improves their knowledge and expertise about products and how these products can deliver value for them. They can tap into the expertise of others that they don't necessarily have around them. I say always, communities, you found them in all different kind of topics. And if you are a fan of water bottles, you can find a community where you have other people around the world that also are fan of water bottles, and you know, typically your partner or your kids or your parents are not necessarily sharing that passion of yours, and online you can find it. You have access to peers and you can help them. You can just ask them for help if you have particular issues, and get also product and service information. If you turn to the company side, you can monitor conversations, and because you monitor conversations, you better understand what your customer wants, what your customer needs, what kind of troubles the customer has, what kind of ideas the customer has, which you can all leverage to create a product that offer higher value, and maybe you can even sell them at a higher price. Of course, you can also become a more active participant in communities and then provide members with relevant information, not necessarily as a marketer, so not as a seller. I'm trying to sell you this bottle, but by explaining you how it was built, what the design was about, how it is different from other products potentially on the market, really providing people with relevant background information. I think that kind of like sums it up. And if you participate, you can also drive conversations, which could be useful for you as well, because you can elicit input. Okay, so I mentioned the word community a lot, but there is, I think, a lot of unclarity what community really is. So if I'm posing you this question, and please use the chat function or the question function, as we said, in the right bottom or the right side of your screen, would some of you share with me how you define community? What is community in your eyes? I'm giving you a couple of, okay, common values and interests, yes. They can see the questions? They cannot. They cannot see each other's, you cannot see each other's things. Okay, so I need to now very quickly, because I have 400 people that are typing at the same time. So a group of people that share the same values, shared interest, shared values, common interest, sharing values. We get a lot of the same questions indeed, yes. People interacting and sharing experiences between them, supporting each other. Exactly. A place to share something together. That's a great definition as well. Discussing common things. Unity. I like it that you take that apart. Unity. Having something together. where people are valued, a group of people have relationship and where they're valued together, feeling part of something. So, okay, so these are all very valid definitions of what community is. Community is a concept that exists since a very long time. And if you go back to the original anthropological meaning, it's indeed all these things. Today, we would, if we translate it to the online context, I think we can sum it up in these three characteristics, really. Community means togetherness. A lot of you highlighted sharing, having something in common. So there is really, we call it this we feeling, togetherness. And today, a lot of communities had togetherness maybe in the past or many centuries ago, that was around. Or for now, actually that is not true, it's still the case. So we are together in our religious communities, for example, or in our villages where we share a local traditions together. However, we also see that increasingly consumers bond together over consumption experiences. So indeed, I put a couple of pictures here. You see these two ladies running. So you have many very active running communities. I also put an example of Baby Center, which is a community for mothers to be and parents, where mothers to be grouped together based on the due date of the pregnancy, let's say. And increasingly, you also see that consumers group together around brands such as Nutella, such as Lomo, such as Mini. They have extremely active um, online and offline communities where people bond together. Now, there's two other things that are important in community, which is the fact that communities live or get formed through rituals and traditions. So communities need to if you think again about your local village, where there is particular moments in the year where you come together, or where you have the weekly market where there's an opportunity to interact together. So rituals and tradition give an opportunity to community to come alive. And a community, many of you also refer to the fact that in a community you stick out for each other, you help each other, you offer support. So we call that moral responsibility. So those are three characteristics that we see or that define what community is, also online. um, Now, with that, the question we need to pose ourselves is that a Facebook page, or having an Instagram account, or having a tweet account for your company doesn't necessarily directly translate into having community. I know that today many companies have community managers. Those are the ones that indeed maintain the Facebook pages and stuff like that. But if you think, and I think all of you agreed when you gave me your definition of what a community is, that that is what it takes to have a community, then just having a Facebook page or just having a YouTube channel does not automatically mean that you're actually having a community. It is more complicated than that. So let's now put ourselves in the shoes of you as a marketing manager that decides that you do want to have a community, like, for example, this Nutella community or Lomo community, a community of participants that are really, that you want to offer this bond between them, and that you want to create something around togetherness, rituals and traditions, moral responsibility. So you want to build community. How do you do that? One of the first questions you need to answer yourself: which platform are you going to be using? And of course, you can use platforms like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or one of the other social media platforms. However, today we see that many companies decide to use their own community platform. SAP has a community network where they have, I think, over 300,000 people participating regularly. Pampers, in a B2C context, decided to build a community uh, as a way of offering indeed parents support and a way to connect together. And not they're not it's not necessarily only about diapers, but it's really about how can you help your kids grow, really. So that is a first question you need to pose yourself. And here I have again a question for you, and you can well, if you want, you can give me a couple of answers again in the chat phase. So if you need to make a trade-off between starting a community on an existing social network versus building your own community platform, what would be the benefit of building your own community platform? Thinking about SAP or Pampers, why did they decide to build their own community platform? What would be some of your answers? Control, you can customize it. Control of advertisement, stronger focus and dedication. You can have higher loyalty. You can have access to the data. IP, indeed, you say. You can be independent of others. Security, absolutely. You can target specific clients. You can have a stronger network. You get better exposure, centralize, control, better tracking of data. Your corporate culture can be highlighted. GDPR, indeed, with a question mark, good question mark. You can have much more specific communication. Your customers may not be distracted by other things. You can leverage better features. Okay, so I think indeed you get the gist of what is all the benefit of it. Here I would sum it up like this. One, if you have your own community, it is much easier to integrate it in your own website, which means that it is also much easier to connect it with everything else that you have already going on, which is relevant for any kind of marketer, right? Being able to integrate the data that you can get from a community with a CRM database that you may have, or with your sales tracking database that you may have. A lot of you said indeed you can customize it, and you can, which is indeed on a Facebook platform, you're using the platform that someone else has built for you. So maybe it doesn't offer all the features that you would like to offer. Very important, many of you mentioned that you can have control who accesses it. If you build your own community, many companies would have parts that are maybe more publicly available, but they would also have private communities on invitation only. In the private communities, they invite, for example, lead users with whom they ideate product solutions. And that may be things that you don't necessarily want to have in a public community where also all your competitors can observe. Also, when it is your own community, you do have indeed more control about what you allow and what you do not allow for kinds of content in that community to happen. So in my course, I talk a lot about bad buzz and dealing with social media crisis. So I'm all for everybody needs to be able to say what they want. However, there is also a lot of bad things happening on the web. So having your own community space gives you much more um, lever to exclude and censor content that you do not find appropriate for your brand. And for example, Sephora, the makeup brand, they have a community, very very active community where girls or women are advising each other on makeup. And in this particular, if you have a community of young women, you want this to be a community that is free of profanity, free of sexual harassment. So by having their own community, by having the handle on it, they can make that a safe space. And this is why it's such a successful, one of the reasons why it's such a successful community. And finally, many of you mentioned that too, you own the data, which in Facebook or YouTube is not the case. You don't own the data, and you can thus only do so much with it. Now, of course, these are great benefits. So if this is all the benefits, then why are not all these companies building their own community platforms? Well, obviously that is because there's also a lot of money involved, or money, resources, I have to say more. One, financially, because actually the community platform is costly. I think a basic community platform solution comes at $75,000. So that is a quite hefty amount. And then you want to have it integrated in your existing internet solution, let's say. So that is costly. Also, communities, and this is where these community managers come from, they need human resources. You need to animate, manage, and leverage the community, because communities need to be nurtured. Communities need to be directed, really. And then a community, if we go back to these three key characteristics: togetherness, rituals and traditions, moral responsibility, this is not something that happens overnight. So if you start your own community platform, you need some patience. Typically, it would take maybe about a year for the community to actually be deserve the label of community, because it takes time to build this moral responsibility. It takes time to build togetherness, and this is all these reasons why a lot of companies maybe have foregone this idea of communities. Now, I want to give you an example of maybe an illustration of a company that has heavily invested in community, and it is Dell. So Dell actually moved into the social media space early because they were confronted with a lot of negative buzz around their service and around their product. So Michael Dell, the founder and CEO of the company at the time in 2006, said, okay, let's go online and let's interact with our customers and our detractors online. And they really started to invade the entire social media space, being present on many, many different platforms. In terms of communities, they're very clever, I think, because they have developed different types of communities to cater to these specific needs. So on the one hand, here you see on the left side of the screen, Idea Storm. So this is a community where people who have ideas for new products can launch or can come up with ideas, and other participants can ideate on these ideas. So it is used on the one hand for consumers that have great ideas and they can communicate that to Dell, and other fans can iterate on these ideas. Dell is also using it actively when they have an idea and they want to see if it really fits with consumer needs. So they launch idea storms to get feedback and quick feedback. They have also communities that are for support, much more. For business owners, for consumers like you and I, let's say, and also to help solve problems. So here it's participants themselves that give each other feedback, and in all these communities there's also managers involved. What I think is clever is that kind of they separate the ones that are very positive about your brand versus the one that have something to complain, which is something, if you think about, for example, your Facebook page, where you would have ratings and reviews, there you get both the good and the bad, and you have it all on the same website. And lots of times companies who do not want to contaminate their fans with the bad of their detractors, right? So Dell has separated these two. But then, to give you an idea of the costs of what this means to them, is they really invest quite heavily in having their employees on a large scale been able to participate in these communities. So they started around 2009, 2010, so about 10 years ago already. They started what they call the Social Media and Communities University. So this is a training where all employees in the company have get basic training about what is social media, what are some do's and don'ts on social media in general, and then they can specialize on a particular platform. So you have people that get particular training about what to do or don't on Facebook page versus YouTube versus Twitter versus Instagram. versus LinkedIn, and also versus communities. And Dell is very vocal about what their social media principles are. So they provide a certificate to their managers. Um, Today, there's more than 17,000 of their employees that have received this kind of training. And it's an award-winning program, by the way. In addition to that, they don't only train their employees, but then they also follow what these employees are doing on social media and in the communities in particular. So employees have individual scorecards, and through that, they see who is developing content and who is answering customer questions in a way that resonates, and those people get recruited to be subject matter experts, and they get a more official role within their communities so that they're really sure that the communities are how do you say it, nurtured with value content. And then that becomes a part of people's daily tasks. So what Dell has done differently from what is happening in most other companies is that they said social media and communities is not something that is closed to, or how do you say it, reserved to the special social media team or the communications team or the marketing team, which consists of only a small number of people. They say, no, when we go on social media, when we start a community program, we want as many employees in our company be part of that. But then this is what it takes: time, money, resources. Okay. So then, okay, maybe now I dissuaded you a little bit and you say, okay, I do not have the time and I do not have the resources to build my own community platform and to be so involved in that and to nurture it over time. So what alternative do you have? uh, what alternative do you have? Well, the alternative obviously is to join existing communities, and this is really something different from having a Facebook page, a branded Facebook page. Here, I'm really talking about you going online and you look at which communities already exist, to which my brand or company could be relevant. So, if you are there is communities come in all sorts and forms. So you have communities that are started by consumers, like for example here at Nutella. So Nutella doesn't need to have, they don't need to build a community. They have it. It's there. There's people who love Nutella and they have formed communities themselves online. So why put your effort, money, time, resources in it to build it if it is already there? um, that is in a consumer context. You also have more business context. If you go on LinkedIn, there is many thousands of professional groups, where in a B2B context you could be relevant. You could have third party community platforms. Baby Center is one example. House is another example. It's a community around interior design and decorating. And here you see that this community attracts both professionals, how do you call it, building constructors, interior designers, architects, and then consumers that like that. So that all brings it together, and all these people have a particular interest. And if you are in this business, you can participate in these kinds of communities and offer value. So to go a little bit deeper into what you can do if you join an existing communities, because there again, let's say there's different degrees of how you can be involved. On the one hand, you can just become a member. So Dell, with their strategy of having as many employees in the company certified to participate in social media discussions, uh, tells their employees, you know, be a member of existing communities, be active on social media platforms where people happen to talk about Dell or topics that are relevant to Dell. The role that you then take is you're a peer. You need to contribute as an equal, and what you can do is offer expertise. So Dell conversation guidelines, I think, are quite insightful here. They tell, you do not come in and you say, boff, and our solution is the best solution ever. No, you listen first, you really try to understand what is the problem, what is the need, and then you try to add value by solving problems. Dell also is very clear about that you cannot do that and and not disclosing that you're a Dell member. So you cannot actually in social media terms that is even forbidden. In some countries you can really not do that. So I think this is a very nice example of Dell is having their own communities, but they're also part on a lot of other social media conversations by empowering their employees to follow these guidelines. If you can go one step further, maybe you can become a sponsor. So an example of that is Lego. I have three small sons, so there's a lot of Lego in my house. So Lego too, it's a company that attracts many, many, many fans. And of course, these fans, consumers, have already flocked together and they have already formed communities, like Brick said. So Lego, it's not a Lego community, but Lego is sponsoring this community. So it offers some advertising, there's giveaways, there's donations. And actually, through this particular community, they have developed the Lego line. Maybe you've heard of it. Is it here? I'm not seeing my slides anymore. Yeah, it's appearing. Yes, thank you. The product line architecture, because Brickset was started by an architect. Okay, so through collaborating with the consumer, really, that started this particular community, they developed a product line that is now today extremely successful and helping indeed young kids still continue being Lego fans when they're older. Another example in the B2B context, a more industrial business context, is Philips from the Netherlands. So a little bit of promotion here. Philips, the company that is in lighting traditionally, now a big player in the health market. So Philips is sponsoring on LinkedIn a community that is called Innovations in Health. So this is not a community about Philips. It's also not a community about Philips solutions. This community is a community that brings together 144,000 members that are health professionals, doctors, but also people working in the insurance industry that together discuss about health industry trends and news. And Philips adds value by, analyzing trends and indeed sometimes, of course, also talking about some of their solutions. Okay, so to sum up, and I'm looking at the time, we're good on time, yes. So to sum up, what kind of three strategies do you have if you want to think about going for this community pillar as part of your larger social media strategy? So you can become the community owner as SAP or Pampers Village. You can become the community sponsor, as we see with Lego, or you can become a community member, as Dell is doing with their big employer outreach, social media outreach. I have summarized also here for you what are the benefits and the costs and how you can trade it off. Indeed, it goes from full control and access to the data to if you're just a community member, you have absolutely no control, obviously, and everybody has access to the data. So that also determines what you can and cannot disclose on these communities. The costs obviously are an inverse relationship. Your own community is much more costly in time, human resources compared to when you ask your employees to be active on your behalf. Your role is very different. Whereas you are your community owner, you are a guardian of this community. And typically, you only need to be a facilitator because you get together people who already have a lot to share. So you need to just make it easy for this sharing to happen. That is the right approach. When you're a community sponsor, like Philips is with their innovations in health community, then you want to put yourself forward as an expert and a thought leader in your industry. And when you're a community member, your role is much more toned down and you need to be much more equal. You cannot do marketing speak there. And then strategically speaking, again, I don't need to go over all this. I think you see it here. Again, if you're a peer, you can offer advice. If you're a sponsor, you can educate. There's a difference there. but when you're a community owner, you can do much, much more than that. You can also offer support, you can do co-creation, you can do customer relationship management. Now, with that, the little short masterclass on community. Communities as part of your social media strategy ends. This masterclass, let's say, is part of my course. So in my course, I would continue. Obviously, this is only a little part of it, and we would talk. We would go deeper into the issue of, if you now really go into this community, you see what kind of different members do you have, what drives people to be part of these communities. So I offer a member typology, and with this member typology come different roles. So what kind of value people bring to this community, and what kind of things they're looking for. So then we discuss how you, as a manager of these communities, can push members to move up, let's say, in the value chain and becoming more valuable members. It also tells you the types of content that these different members need from you, the kinds of stuff that people are looking for. So we really go into that quite deeply. And then I have a whole part on how can you incite and reward content. In lots of communities, you see these batches happening. So actually, I will explain you that it's a double-edged sword, and how you can make it into something that is indeed, again, valuable for everybody. There's a lot of free riding happening in communities, so there's only a small part of people that contribute, for many, many people that only consume. So we address that and strategies of, again, how you can manage that. And many, many more things. So with that, I want to thank you for your presence today. I hope that you found the webinar useful, and I certainly hope that I will meet many of you as a continuation and as students in our Master of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. So I give the word back to Nadia, that has a couple of final words for you to close the webinar.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristine. Thank you for this great content, which is a part of the master we have here at HEC. So, just to finalize the presentation of today, I just wanted to highlight some information and to give you some information about how to be a part of this master. So you need to bear in mind that the participants we have in the Master of Innovation Entrepreneurship, the average age of these participants is 38 years old, and they have an average of 15 years professional experience. So for the last three intakes, the participants we had in this master, they came from different countries. We have a lot of nationalities, like 36 different nationalities, like Americans, Japanese, some French people, Chinese, etc. And what is also interesting in this course is that participants, they come from different sectors. So this will be also an opportunity for you to let me say, to bring your added value to the others through the platform, through the classes, through the exchange that you will have with the other participants. So as I mentioned, people, they're coming from different industries, like communication, oil and gas, healthcare. So the master is really very rich in terms of participants and different profiles. So some of the requirements we have for this master is having at least a bachelor degree, and also minimum 5 years professional experience. I saw that some of you already asked the question if having 5 years professional experience is really a requirement. So let me say that what is also important for this classes is the motivation and the project. Having a project that is aligned to the program is something that the selection committee will be looking at. But we can also discuss your project if you would like to have some more information about the program. And so at the end of the presentation, you will have my contact, so we can stay in touch and discuss your project and your professional project, but also the project to come back to school, let me say, for some of you. And also, last but not least, is one of the requirements is being proficient in English, because the program is will be taught 100% in English. So how do I apply to the master? You can apply to this master through the Coursera platform or through the website of HEC Paris. Once you have created your online application, how can I put this? You can access the application directly once you have created it, but you need to bear in mind your username, the password you're using for the first time you've been connected to the website and to the platform. And once you're connected to our platform, then we will ask you to submit some personal and professional information. Um, some of the most important parts of the application will be the essays you have to write down. We also do ask for 2 letters of recommendation. We, for non-native speakers, we to ask for an English test. Like TOEIC or TOEFL. And last but not least, you will have to attach a 3-minute video pitch in the online application in which you're explaining your professional experiences, your project, and your motivation to join the Master of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Some information that could be important for some of you is the fact that we do not ask for any management test or GMAT. So these tests are not required for the online application. So some of you already asked about the price of the program. As I mentioned at the beginning of this um, presentation, the Master of Innovation Entrepreneurship has a very attractive tuition fees, which are 20,000 euros. And what is interesting is also the possibility to pay upfront or in different installments. The maximum is 4 different installments. Something that could be interesting for you is the fact that you can start first of all with the online certificate. If you don't have the time required for the program, because well, even if it's in an online program, you need to the commitment is very important. You need to bear in mind that between the modules, you need to provide additional time of around 20 hours per week to go further in the program, to prepare the different tests, to learn some new things. So it's really a very important commitment. And for people, that's the reason why it's very important to find the right time for you to do the program. And as I mentioned, if you do not have the enough time to start with the master, you can first start with the online certificate, which is, by the way, the first part, the 10 courses of the master, and then in the master you can continue with the project part. And the price of the online program is 5,000 euros. And then, of course, if you're admitted to the master, the price of the certificate you already have done will be deducted of the price of the tuition fees of the master. So some useful information about the next deadline. We will have another intake in June 24th in 2019. So you will have enough time to to go through the admissions process and to prepare all of this. So we recommend to submit your online application before 13th of January, because this is really a recommended application deadline, because each month we have selection committees, and the next selection committee will be on 16th of January. So if you have enough time now to finalize your application, you can do it, and then end of January you will have the final decision of jury, and in case of admission, then you'll have enough time to prepare yourself about the program. So well, we're at the end of this presentation. Here you have my contact if you need some information about the program. You can join me by telephone, by email, and you also have the link to You Can Book Me, on which you can choose a slot for a quick conversation of around 10 to 15 minutes if you have any additional questions. So yeah, thank you once again to all of you for being connected today for this great webinar delivered by Kristine. I'm sure that you were able to learn a lot of new things, and if you If you're interested to joining the program, then you will be able to continue learning a lot of new things thanks to our professors, which will be teaching in the program.
I hope to see you soon.
Yeah, hope to see you soon. And don't hesitate to book a quick conversation, and then we will be able to discuss all the questions you might have about the program. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon on the Coursera platform for the HEC Master in Innovation and Entrepreneurship.
Bye-bye.
Bye.